Welcome to the Blueprints to Buildings podcast. I'm your host, Glen Palmer, and on this show, we interview the movers and shakers in the world of property development and real estate. Now, this show is supported by something very few developers have quietly been using to get projects funded and sold faster. Now, that is without touching traditional 3D models. It's early, it's clever, and it's changing how people see off-plan property. I'll leave it there, but if you're curious, message me on LinkedIn at Glen Palmer Online or check out the show notes below. So today I am joined by Sameer Ramgoolam. He is the director of Smart Build Engineering, a structural engineer pushing the boundaries of digital engineering, open BIM collaboration, and sustainable prefab construction. Someone actively shaping what Construction 4.0 actually looks like on real projects. Sameer, very warm welcome to the show. Thank you for taking time out your schedule to come chat with me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Glenn. It's a pleasure to be on your show. Thanks a lot for reaching out to me, and I look forward to having this discussion with you.
Excellent. Thank you. I think this one is going to be rather interesting. I'm all about 3D technologies and BIM and stuff like that and what the future may hold for these digital technologies. So without further ado, let's just jump right in. And I'll start with a question that I ask absolutely everybody.
Sure.
If time travel became a reality and you had a chance to go back to when you first started your career in South Africa, what advice would the person that you are now actually tell your younger self?
That's a good question, actually. It leads to self-reflection, I guess. In the early days or in early ages, you always think about qualifications and how many qualifications you can get under your belt. And later in your career, you realize that it's not the be all and end all.
Yeah,
So that would be my number one thing is yes, the qualifications are important, but it's certainly not the be all and end all. And a degree or any qualification, of course, is a foot in the door.
yeah.
Just to get you set up for what's to come. I'm a very staunch believer of having a balance of the theory and the application of the theory,
Hmm.
but also the practical aspects of it in terms of construction. And one of the best things I believe, especially when you're young, is you can have a lot of learnings from international travel.
Yeah.
Go to different countries, have a look at how they construct things, how they design things, and that itself is learning. And I wish I could have done that at my earlier years as well. And I'll certainly take that on board going forward as well. So in the next couple of years, I will be embracing that. I think that's incredibly important. In terms of like just standing on your own two feet, or even considering or contemplating opening a business, there's no perfect time to do it. Just push ahead and get that done and live that dream. And
Yeah.
the earlier you do it, the better. Your biggest learning is by your failures and banging your head up against the wall.
Yeah.
And that's my lessons learned. And if I have to go back in time and tell my younger self that will certainly be these dot points that I mentioned, and certainly a quality over quantity. You
Yeah.
focus on quality, and to build yourself up and build that specialty that you want and what you to specialize in. So that would be the sort of viewpoints that I would pass to myself here.
Yeah. And very good ones as well. Because one of the things that I learned is in if I had a chance to go back, to see my younger self was, start the business a lot sooner. Don't
Correct.
be,
Yes.
don't be afraid.
Yes,
And,
absolutely.
and failure is just unfortunately going to be one of these things. But as long as you learn from that failure,
Yes.
it's not really a failure. It's a learning opportunity. So,
Correct.
Samir, you built Smart Build around the sort of digital engineering and open BIM space. So, what problems in the traditional structural design were you actually trying to fix?
I come from a very sort of conservative way of doing things back in South Africa. Everything was in 2D, very plain and simple. For
Hmm.
me, that was not good enough. So what I'm trying to fix is, and basically it's a uh, and basically, what I was trying to fix is coordination. That's the key, no doubt. What I want to achieve is that single source of truth in that Revit model. And I'm saying Revit in this case because it's one of the best BIM-based modeling tools that supports this process.
Hmm.
And so for most part, it's a coordination with different disciplines, but in my case, architectural. Of course, when you come deal with MEP as well, that also becomes very important. So coordination is really the key, and especially when you're dealing with offsite prefabrication, that becomes even more important because
Hmm.
accuracy is everything. You're dealing with millimeter accuracy construction, so coordination is key. So
Yeah.
Open BIM is also in terms of like dealing with like different file types. There's so many software suppliers in different file formats and things. That so Open BIM is essentially with a smart build engineering approach, you work the way you want.
Yeah.
And we'll have the IFC, which is a industry file format, which is a neutral file format, and we use that to exchange information and coordinate our drawings and our models.
Yeah.
So and that's really how I see Open BIM as well. So if you're an architect working on AutoCAD, SketchUp, ArchiCAD, whatever, even shop fabricators like working on CAD work, for example, we just use an IOC a file format for open sharing of the information. So that's one of the ways of how Open BIM is being adopted and how I use it. So digital engineering also coming from like the effort of using the physical model to generate an analytical model for analysis. So it's how you use that physical model for the downstream processes of how you manipulate it for structural engineering. So Revit has it in bulk capability. It has it natively, and you also got the third-party software developers as well that's building on top of Revit as add-ins to provide that additional functionality. And that's what I also seek in terms of digital engineering is have that single source of truth
Yeah.
in that 3D model and how you use that physical model to be able to use it downstream as well for the engineering analysis. So,
Yeah.
and my models are not mock-up models only. You do get people in industry just using the 3D model as a mock-up. My model is built very accurately from the architectural information to capture the intent of the architectural design,
Yeah.
model very accurately, and then use that 3D model to in turn develop the 2D documentation. So everything is all linked in terms of Revit, where you have one change in a model and that gets updated everywhere. So you have to what that ensures is consistency of the information that's being produced.
Yeah.
So and that's vital when it comes to coordination, and that's where Revit is really really powerful. And also in terms of coordination and BIM-based modeling, that Revit, for example, it carries all the metadata that goes with it. So a beam is a beam, a column is a column, and if
Yeah.
it's a concrete beam with a specific strength, it carries all that metadata. So it's
Yeah.
not some dumb model like AutoCAD or whatever the case may be. So, and that's very, very important actually, especially when you use that model for downstream processes, right? So the other
Mm.
main reason for the 3D modeling is, for non-technical people, like for most clients as well, they're non-technical. They don't have
Yeah.
to go through pages of information to understand the design and have you captured the design and what it looks like. So that's where the 3D modeling becomes very, very powerful in terms of a visual tool as well to
Mm.
understand what's happening. All right?
Yeah. Yeah, because it gives them that visuality that you just don't
Correct.
get off paperwork. So yeah,
That's right.
I
Yes,
hear where you're coming
yes,
from. So we're hearing a lot about, construction 4.0, prefab, MMC, and these seems to be major buzzwords and discussions at, every conference I attend to these days. So
yes.
in your opinion, where do you see the structural engineering evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
Okay, now this is a fantastic question and is very pertinent in this day and age. We are sitting at the peak of Construction 4.0, and Construction
Hmm.
4.0 is very much borrowed from the manufacturing industry. In fact, on the manufacturing, they're going to Industry 5.0. And what's really driving that is AI. So the way I see it in the next 5 to 10 years is actually we're going to end up with a lot of AI-driven engineering designs, and not only in structural engineering, but even in mechanical and other forms of engineering as well. So there's no question about that. AI will become the norm going forward, and we have to educate ourselves about these things. In fact, it's
Yeah.
not just 5 to 10 years; it's happening right now,
Yeah.
and it's just not as accessible as it will be going forward. So, because if you look at like a 10 year, 5 to 10 year time frame, it will certainly be more accessible. And why? Because the hardware will get cheaper, the services will get cheaper because it will become more mainstream.
Yeah.
So one of the things, if you was following the CES 2026, the GPU compute, coming from companies like NVIDIA, and that will lead this way. Software companies and developers like Siemens, Ansys, which is part of Synopsys, Dassault Systems, they will be the big players who will really bring it down to the level of the average engineering company and to the common player, and
Yeah.
to make it more mainstream. And this whole part of MMC and Industry 4.0, generative design, for sure. Generative
Mm.
design accompanied with 3D printing will be very much come to the fore. And this 3D printing can be in different materials. It can
Yeah.
3D concrete printing of whole houses are really coming into play. But in my case, very specifically, it will be 3D metal printing
Yeah.
with generative design, and all AI driven as well.
Yeah.
So specifically to MMC, what's important to note is that these considerations of modularity, like for example, design for disassembly, framing aspects, and offsite prefab. The structural engineering role will really lead over the architecture because you are basically essentially reverse engineering the entire project. So what that means is that the engineering role will be pivotal in early involvement to
Mm.
set the path of how the design needs to develop. There's no two way about that. It's not really the future; it's actually happening right now. And
Yeah.
that's what I advocate to my clients and to my projects as well. And it actually works out fantastic because what that does, it takes out the guesswork out of the project. So typically, the engineer only comes in downstream after this. The documentation is fairly well done, and that's actually too late. And what
Mm.
I advocate to the clients is that early involvement of all of the disciplines to come in, especially the engineering, to advise upfront, and that's what MMC is going to do. It's going to change the way we approach projects and design and build them. So I also see new products being introduced as well, very much geared towards MMC. And one
Yeah.
of the things is are sandwich panels. Sandwich panels, which has immense strength, a lot of benefits, and the most common one of them is SIPs. Not SIPs because of strength, but insulation, acoustic properties, thermal properties, and all of that goes with it. So you will find a lot of these new products being coming to play that supports the whole MMC.
Yeah. Yeah, oh well, definitely. And we've touched on it briefly, but looking at your various posts on LinkedIn, you're obviously heavily using your Autodesk, Revit, BIM. How important is that 3D coordination now compared to the traditional 2D structural documentation?
The 3D modeling needs to be the standard, irrespective of the project size. No, really, full stop. I mean, when Smart Build Engineering was formed from the ground up 10 years ago, this is the position I took. I said, irrespective of whatever the size of the project, it needs to be in 3D,
Mhm.
irrespective. So the 3D coordination is really vital, not only for architecture, but other disciplines as well, like MEP.
Yeah,
So this is to ensure that the 3D model captures the design intent very accurately, which in turn gets used to create the fully coordinated 2D documentation. So the 2D drawings are not really physically drawn; they're all generated from the very accurate 3D models.
yeah,
And that 3D model then becomes that single source of truth.
good.
So,
Yeah,
so when it comes to like MEP service, for example, clash detection becomes a huge focus, especially when you're dealing with hybrid structures, not like a mix of timber, steel, or whatever the case may be. Services going through beams, what are the duct size and things that so. That plays a huge role when it comes to coordination. And what's coming on very strongly is digital twins. Basically,
Mhm.
it's a digital construct of the physical build of what you're going to do, and that's coming on very, very strongly. And I see this not happening in major infrastructure projects, but coming down to residential designs as well. So 3D
Mhm.
coordination also lends itself to like reviewing and re
Yeah.
reviewing of the model. So you're
Yeah.
not going using reviewing pages upon pages to understand what's happening. We are tending into digital twins and also augmented reality as well. So you'll
Mhm.
also see augmented reality was around for many, many years, but you will see that also coming to play very heavily as
Yeah.
well. So you will see that like the Autodesk Construction Cloud, which is now Forma, they accommodate all of this in their model. So the
Yeah.
contractors they have a huge advantage of having access to this level of information. So be it with Hive or Apple Vision Pro or the Meta glasses, whatever the case may be. So we can leverage that sort of technology to use for 3D
Yeah.
coordination. But just to mention, which is very, very important, I mean, 2D documentation is not going anywhere anytime soon.
No.
It's still the basis for how we issue our drawings, but very important that gets generated from a 3D model. It's not manually done. So that coordination is always live. If something happens in the 3D model, the 2D documentation is automatically updated.
Yeah.
So be it for any setouts, any member size changes or locations or anything of that sort there. So that's a point that's very important to note. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you sort of mentioned digital twins. So you've got your Revit model. So
Yes.
do you see that value in turning those into interactive 3D walkthroughs for developers, investors, planners, even buyers? And what would you like to see as that technology starts to evolve?
There's no doubt there's benefit of turning those models. And when you talk about having a single source of truth and using that in downstream processes, yeah, that's where it comes in. So using Revit for interactive walkthroughs, using augmented reality, yeah, that's very much can bring a lot of benefit, not for developers and the teams, but for the contractors themselves as well.
Yeah.
And that is vital. I mean, even if you look at all of our big build projects here that's happening in Victoria, these sort of technologies were key to ensure coordination of the new build to the existing services and things. That so all of these sort of technologies came to play, and they were embraced by the tier one contractors. So so it has a range from tier one contractors right down to your single build homes. You have an application for that. So yes, to answer your question, it's a fantastic sales tool,
Mm.
for businesses and to showcase, and also you can use it to showcase the capability of your services to the public. Like if you're doing a trade show or whatever the case may be, you
Yeah.
can use these 3D interactive to show, to what level your design services go, how, and how your work is produced. And that will give a clients and the public a very good understanding of the level of the manner in which the business works and to what level your documentation is produced as well. So it has a lot of benefits, yes.
Brilliant. Oh, I love to hear that because I think that's going to be the future, 100%. And I see a lot of it in conferences coming through. So a lot of
Yes.
engineers are now producing, incredibly detailed BIM models, but very
Yes.
few are actually using them as a sort of commercial tool. So where do you see the biggest missed opportunity? Is it sort of helping the developers secure funding? Is it maybe speeding up approvals? Because we know that they sometimes can lag behind, or is it actually influencing the buyer decision before anything has been built? Where do you see the biggest opportunity, missed opportunities there?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I think the biggest missed opportunity is actually for the contractors. And I've been in the digital engineering game for many years, and the one thing which we try to push and to look deeper into is paperless construction.
Hmm.
And with the realization of and the use of digital twins and cloud computing, which is coming on very strongly, we are heading in that way.
Yeah.
So the biggest winner is going to be the contractors with this. With these incredibly detailed BIM models. So yeah, I would see the biggest opportunity there is paperless construction, what we missed.
Mm.
It's not to say it's a pie in the sky thing. It's countries like Norway where we're doing it with bridge construction many years back. It's just that, Australia is very conservative in their approach. So yeah, you will not see that level of takeoff happen suddenly. And then that's why I flagged that as a missed opportunity. It will happen, but not at the time, not in the same rate at what Europe is moving as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
these detailed BIM models, they also play a huge role in influencing buy decisions. There's no doubt about that. And the
Mm.
reason for that is they can clearly see what they're getting with these BIM models. And of course, when you can clearly see what you're getting, it's easier and quicker for buyers to make these decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Samir, absolutely loved having you on the show. Thank you for very much for coming in, sharing your expertise. And as those new tools develop, can't wait to see where it's going to take structural engineering. Also, I want to take the opportunity to say thanks to my listeners and viewers of YouTube as well. However, Samir, just before we finish off here, if listeners or viewers want to get in touch with you, learn about what you offer at Smart Build Engineering, what's the best ways that they can actually do that?
And best way is connect with me on LinkedIn and drop a message. Connect with me and drop a message, and we can take it from there. I'm
Nice.
also on Instagram as well, but LinkedIn is my number one source to get in touch with me.
Yeah, and I'll drop that in the show notes below as well. So
Yes.
a quick reminder, this episode was supported by a PropTech visual platform that is changing how forward-thinking developers plan, pitch, and sell. Now, it isn't mainstream yet, but it soon will be. If you want to stay ahead of the curve, you know exactly where to find me. So you've been listening to the Blueprints to Buildings podcast. I'm your host, Glen Palmer, and today I was joined by Sameer Ramgoolam. Thanks again for listening and watching, and I will see you guys on the next episode.